The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order, because the global order is changing again. And the institutions and rules that worked so well in the post-World War II era for decades, they need to be strengthened, and some have to be changed. So we have to do what we do best. We have to lead. We have to lead. We have to update the global rules of the road. We have to do it in a way that maximizes benefits for everyone, because obviously it's overwhelmingly in our interest. This is not a zero-sum game. It's overwhelmingly in our interest that China prosper, that Mongolia prosper, that nations big and large, east and west. We have to level the playing field so that American companies and workers can compete in the world, that the competition is fair and it's healthy. To the first point, we came into office facing the worst financial recession since the Great Depression. We had to unfreeze the credit markets, reform the financial system, inject demand back into the economy. And while this agenda is far from complete, we've made significant progress with all of your help. The economy is now added private sector jobs every month. Disappointing this month, but they nonetheless added jobs. Even so, we've still found that there's a need for an ambitious affirmative agenda. We strengthened and signed 3 free trade agreements.
Yes, when Mr. Biden says what he's talking or referring to about everybody will benefit, he's not talking about people, the workers of the workforce. He's talking about global corporations, the countries, which are basically corporations for money laundering, for banks. I mean, that's what they're talking about. And he can only lie so much and put a spin on, at the end he says, if you keep watching it, how I've been accused of being too optimistic. Well, that's because he's like, if you're going to lie to people, at least make it a realistic lie. Don't tell them that you're creating jobs when, just jobs are gone and they're not coming back. I mean, at least be honest with them. He was honest back in 2008 when this was posted, or actually back in, 92, when he said we're on the threshold of a new world order, a rebirth for the United Nations. In a speech in Clayton Hall on the threshold of a new world order, a rebirth for the United Nations, Biden said the world's leaders must adopt a new understanding of security. Well, now we're talking about a new understanding of the economy, global economy. Collective security today must encompass not only security of nations, but also mankind's security in a global environment that has proven vulnerable to debilitating changes wrought by man's own endeavors. See, we're talking about man's own endeavors. So, thus, in setting an American agenda for a new world order, we must begin with a profound alteration in traditional thoughts. So, break down all traditions and cultures. And when we're talking about bring about man's endeavors, these are these bastards' agendas that he was talking about, and their endeavors. Close to 1 in 3 Americans believe in world government and a new world order, which is why I have my website called Global Government News. Why do I call it Global Government News? Because most people say, well, global government, there's no global government, so it's just kind of a play on words. But a recent poll, most of you have already seen this, show that up to 28% of Americans believe that a push for a new world order and world government is real. So world government is real. There's always been some kind of world order. It seems like it's just constantly changing, like Biden says. Kissinger says the illegal we do immediately, unconstitutional takes longer. So WikiLeaks releases 1.7 million archive records from the 1970s, shedding light on global diplomatic history. That's like global government. So news organizations around the world have partnered with WikiLeaks or the Kissinger cables. Going off what we were talking about in the last video, says one from 1973, sent to Washington by the U.S. ambassador to the Vatican, reveals that the Vatican once dismissed reports of massacres by a Chilean dictator as communist propaganda. It says here, WikiLeaks drew attention to a chilling comment made by Kissinger in 1975 during a conversation with the then U.S. ambassador to Turkey and 2 Turkish and Cypriot diplomats. Kissinger quiped, "Before the Freedom of Information Act, I used to say at meetings, the legal we do immediately, the unconstitutional takes a little longer." There was a bunch of laughter after that, but since the Freedom of Information Act, I'm afraid to say things like that. Obama says government tyranny impossible because the government is us. See, the government isn't Microsoft and GE, you know? He's not the CEO of the corporation. The government is us. We voted for it. And his big pitch in Colorado on Wednesday for further gun control, which I don't know will ever really happen because gun sales, the gun companies love this guy. They love him. That's another one of the complexes. You know, Smith & Wesson and all these companies, it's, yeah, they should be up there too. They're making a crap load of money under him. So it made an astonishing statement about gun rights advocates' fears of governmental gun seizures. He said that such worries would just feed into fears about government. You hear some of these folks, I need a gun to protect myself from the government. We can't do background checks because the government's going to come take my guns away. The government's us. These officials are elected by you. I am constrained as they are constrained by the system that our founders put in place. Says the government is most assuredly not us, at least not all of us, which is why our system of government is designed to protect the rights of minorities while still allowing majorities to legislate without violating those rights. Obama's defense to charges of incipient tyranny is that tyranny can never happen here, which of course makes it more likely that tyranny will happen here or already has, right? Truth be told, they say, even Obama does not believe that government is us. If he did, he would never worry about pro-life legislation. He does and would challenge such legislation in court. Heterosexual marriage legislation, he does and challenges such legislation in court. Or anti-Obamacare legislation at the state level, he does and will likely challenge such in the court. Even in Obama's vision of rights, populism is limited, although his vision of rights is skewed. And in that video with Joe Biden, you should go check it out. He's talking about these trade agreements and that are binding these countries so they lose their sovereignty. They're using the economy and financial trade to supersede sovereignty because they don't like democracies. I mean, you know, that's what we were talking about. Going off of what Kissinger's saying and this crap right here is that they don't like democracies. They can't get things done as fast. They do like some kind of form of dictatorship, and what we have is kind of a corporatized scientific dictatorship. It's just, I don't know, there's different names it could be called, but I remember hearing the term, you know, about the mass democracy in regards to Edward Bernays and use of advertising and getting people to buy things that they didn't necessarily need, you know, just wants and that. And that was the way they were going to control them, through psychology, which is why a lot of people are on pharmaceutical drugs. And ironically, you know, just the mental health of our society is just very, very sick at this point, too. So, U.S. debt money system, cause of poverty. So, Bill Still, producer of Money Master, says the problem is the debt system, which now afflicts almost every nation on the planet. It's leading cause of most of the world's hunger, poverty, misery, and disease. It says here that hunger plagues 1/7 of the world's population, that only 3.5 billion per year can save every one of those 5 million children that die of malnutrition. This is less than 1/10 of 1% of the amount that the American people pay just in interest on our national debt each year, a payment that is entirely unnecessary. So the interest payment of national debt in the U.S. is $500 billion per year. It says this is at the astoundingly low interest rates that exist in the United States today. When those interests start to go up, or once they start to go up, the amount of debt payment is going to rise stratospherically. It can just be unbelievable, or an unbelievable burden, not only on the American taxpayer, but the citizens of the world. Police are teaching tactics for handling sovereign citizens. This is not something that's a surprise to me. I've seen these over the last couple of years. FBI classifies such people who refuse to recognize government authority, right, as they're illegitimate, like I've mentioned many times before as well, in virtually any form as part of domestic terrorist movement. So, you know, if you think that what Obama's saying is a bunch of hooey and that we don't have democracy and the government is illegitimate as far as their authority over you or me or us, then you are a terrorist. That's how you really need to see it. With this shaggy hair, bushy mustache, whatever, in obstinate ways, this individual is well known to the sheriff's department. So see, that they know these people. They're talking about driving around with phony license plates, right? And they do that because they don't want to deal with the cops and having to go through all the legalities and the paperwork and stuff, because a lot of these cops are not knowledgeable about these people. So they put on these phony license plates so they don't have to be harassed every time they want to go to the store, right? But see, this is when they say this is a privilege. Driving and driver's license is a privilege and not a right. Well, transporting yourself and traveling is a right. And, you know, telling you that it's a privilege, well, that's just telling you that you're a slave. And you have the privilege to move about as a slave, you know, in your prison. So they like to attach numbers to you, which is a license plate, like your address. It's a cell number, is what it is. So I mean, that's how you should see it. So instead of informing these police officers that these individuals do not like to be called sovereign citizens, mostly because they don't consider themselves to be citizens, so it's an oxymoron or whatever. But what? They could educate them in the laws, because most of these political law enforcement officers or revenue collectors don't actually know the law. So when you start to question them, like these individuals do, these freemen, they don't like it because they feel insulted. So they're going to educate them on how these people are basically terrorists. That's how they're going to, instead of them educating themselves about the law, they're just going to go ahead and say, see, these guys are driving phony plates. You know, these guys have handguns without permits and stuff. I mean, these guys are bad people. They want to overthrow the government, right? That's what they tell them. So this individual, Detective Robert Finch of Greensboro Police Department, says, or basically, that he goes around and teaches these people. I've trained nearly 15,000 police and 5,000 public officials to combat sovereigns, zealots who refuse to recognize government authority in virtually any form. So there's really nowhere you can go without a government. So, you know, without a nice little phallus, Egyptian phallus, or Masonic stuff, you know, just basically letting you know that it's the same secret scumbags running the planet and running every little town and running every, you know, little city. So they got their fingernails into everything. So there's really nowhere that you can really go where they're not. So it says violent confrontations are rare, but yeah, they're going off this 1 in 2,000. The agency calls sovereigns whose number between 100,000 and 300,000 a domestic terrorist movement. It says this time of year has the federal authorities on alert, since the central tenet of the sovereigns movement is its adherents believe that they owe no income taxes, which, you know, that's money to the Federal Reserve System. None of us owe it, right? We don't even want it. We never really asked for it, but it was shoved down our throats back in the early 1900s, pretty much in secrecy over holidays. Because, you know, if it was something that everybody wanted, they would have really, like, made it very democratic and open about it, but they didn't. It just goes to show you. Man, you know, it's just basically another assault with the usury system. Man charged with terrorism for criticizing school security. So it says here, what's completely discouraging is that America is starting to become the same kind of police state. So it says here that a New Jersey mother discovered that when she was arrested after reading the Constitution at a public meeting, and New Jersey father discovered it, he was interrogated and police threatened to remove his children after he posted a picture of a glowingly proud son with a hunting rifle. But now a disabled grandfather in Iowa has made a terrible discovery. In today's American, if you have an opinion, you go to jail. So this Brian Davis told his physical therapist that he was worried about his granddaughter's school and how it wasn't properly secured against gunmen. He was making small talk with the physical therapist, complaining about what he considers to be lax security at his granddaughter's school, and the therapist claimed Davis was making a threatening comment about going into the school and opening fire. So he was posing an obvious hypothetical about the school's equally obvious vulnerabilities. I never said I would go in there and do something to those kids. I said anybody, any one person can go in there, anybody. So he doesn't have a criminal record, nor does he own a gun. So, you know, just another reason why you should just pull your kids from these indoctrination camps if you can, is that what? Is that you have 1 in 9 middle and high schoolers suspended during the school year. 1 in 9 students in middle high schools in 2009-2010 school year were suspended at least once, according to a new report by a civil rights group. It says the high suspension rate may be punishing kids or pushing kids to drop out of school altogether. Well, they don't want to do that. They want you in there, so they'll do whatever they got to do to get you in there. They really stress that re-education. Ron Paul launches his own homeschool curriculum. So it says here, launches his own K-12 homeschool curriculum to provide an education and liberty like no other. Go in there and check out the links. The links will be posted. I'm going to come back with this. Glenn Beck eviscerates MSNBC promo claiming your kids belong to the whole community. And Melissa Harris Perry says we've never invested as much in public education as we should have, you know, because you got a brainwash, because you always have a kind of private notion about your children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these that these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to the whole community. Thank you.